Okay, we are the Coalition. We're loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network. Here in downtown Providence, just a mile or so from our studio. This is Good Friday, for the record, if folks happen upon this in the future. And what we've tried to do is cover in person a handful of peace protests that are going on that are so appropriate to both the Passover and Good Friday theme, if you will. That of resurrection, that of rebirth, renewal, and of course, ultimately peace. I'm standing here in a chilly Good Friday afternoon with the members of the Rhode Island Anti-War Committee. People will recognize someone who's a repeat offender on the Coalition is Pat Fontes. She's here, all bundled up. Of course, she ran, I would say, a highly successful campaign for the United States Senate. She didn't win the election, but she brought to the forefront a whole number of points, well, quite frankly, that needed to be said and hadn't been said, and is difficult to say in a closed media market with an established Washington presence that's clearly not interested in having a conversation about peace. But enough of politics. I'm going to go down. We're going to have a couple of quick conversations with folks about both Yemen, nuclear war, and nuclear treaties. And we're going to invite those folks into a little warmer format in the next week or so and have them in studio to have virtually in studio to have a conversation. So first of all, Pat, thanks for keeping me aware of what's going on with this. It's part of the issue, and we're going to do our best in our own little way to amplify what happens at these protests. So I'm going to go down the aisle a little while. First of all, let's talk Yemen. Who's...
All right.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Tim Sproles. And, essentially, not just Yemen, but, we oppose the hyper-militaristic foreign policy of the United States that engages, sees a solution with using military means to resolve conflicts around the world. Mm-hmm. And, we don't believe that all these different nations have to be enemies of the American people. We think that we started out opposing the Iraq War 20 years ago and, oppose the continuing non-ending conflicts that the United States is engaged in. Yemen is one example, a good example of that, an internal struggle inside Yemen that possibly could be resolved diplomatically turns out into, a foreign bombing campaign of the Yemeni people by Saudi Arabia and the UAE, mm-hmm. and using American-made weapons and killing tens of thousands of people to the point where, and when the Saudi Air Force was bombing Yemen, they were bombing farms, civilian population, so that now we have this crisis of near starvation, and that they blockading the ports of northern Yemen, that they can't get medical supplies in and food supplies in. Mm-hmm. And, the United States was backing that for years. Now, President Biden said he's going to withdraw some of that support, and that's good, but there's still a long way to go. Right. Those people are suffering. But, we use economic sanctions against a number of different countries that pose no threat to the United States. Mm-hmm. The Venezuelan government, you might be critical of it, or Iran, but it doesn't deserve to, or the people of those countries don't deserve the punishment that the United States is meting out with these economic sanctions impoverishing these countries and these people. They are not our enemy. We don't believe that the various peoples around the world are our enemy. We can coexist with them. In fact, we need to cooperate to solve the world's problems of climate change and poverty and food security.
Mm-hmm. Can I add that wars are made to sell weapons?
Go ahead, take over.
No, I don't want to take over.
No, go ahead.
I just want to make the point that, the weapons industry is such a big component of the American industry or economics that it influences decision making.
Right.
It's a bad thing.
Well, you have the essentially the military leader of America, the Secretary of Defense, is a recent alumni of the boardroom of Raytheon.
And the previous guy was from Boeing, I think.
Right. So you've got a direct connection between the boardroom and the bombed, decimated streets in cities and communities of Yemen. I mean, there's a causal relationship there, and what's frustrating to me, I'm not going to project my politics onto you folks, but you've got we're here in Providence, Rhode Island. You've got a federal delegation that's intimately involved, a United States senator who's often mentioned as being the next potential Secretary of Defense, who is a West Point grad, and Raytheon obviously has a significant presence here in New England, and yet this conversation, were it not for you folks and some folks up in Boston, this conversation wouldn't be held. From all of your reactions, folks often ask, why do people in the Middle East hate us? And I often point out that if in fact they were bombing us, we probably wouldn't feel, there wouldn't be a lot of camaraderie there. And I just want to run a point by you. What was shocking last year when the Trump administration decided to assassinate the general from Iran, so many folks here in Rhode Island, their narrative was, well, they started it. Well, and I said, well, what do you mean the Iranians started it? He goes, well, in 1976, during the Carter administration, they took over our embassy. I said, are you aware that the United States CIA, and this isn't conspiracy theories, the United States CIA essentially took out even by Western standards, a democratically elected government in Iran. And people are like, oh, I've never heard that.
Back in the 50s.
Yeah. So I just, how can we educate Rhode Islanders? I mean, you guys are doing the work of the Lord here, literally. How can we educate Rhode Islanders that we've seen the enemy, and very often he is us? What do we do to advance this argument so that people understand that the United States foreign policy, in addition to its defense industry, to your point, is a significant factor in international terror?
We have to give them an alternative to the jobs. I think it's so often weapons manufacturing is a jobs issue. Mm-hmm. And we need to come up with alternatives that people will consider good middle-class jobs. Our former governor used to call jobs at Electric Boat good middle-class jobs. That's if you don't factor in a moral component. It's like, what are those machines being used for?
Mm-hmm. No, it's. I think it's a question of a generation. The COVID crisis points out the importance of international cooperation. Randall, my good friend, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. I'm keeping the mask on. I'll just speak loud if that's okay.
That's fine. I'll do this too.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, well, lots of people will have different ideas about how we can discuss this issue and how to present alternatives. I think it's good to have a lot of different alternatives suggested, but I'll tell you mine. I think one issue is that we confuse the kind of overfunded, overexpensive military aggression that we've been seeing for so many decades. Americans confuse that with defense. Americans are like, if we don't do that, we won't have any defense left. And the whole thing is just counterproductive from as far as defending America. I mean, our military spent decades threatening North Korea, saying we've got the nuclear bombs, you don't, and using that to intimidate the North Koreans. And they never imagined that the North Koreans would develop nukes of their own, but that's a natural result if you try to threaten them like that. They just had this pompous sense that they would always be superior, and that if they threw their weight around, there would be no consequences. And now their attitude is, if we start having a conflict with China, we'll just send our jets into China and bomb China. No, that's totally unrealistic. America is not a hyper-dominant country anymore. Other countries were bound to catch up, and they have caught up. And we cannot win wars on those hyper-aggressive terms, and we keep posturing as if we are so dominant we can beat everyone else, and that was never going to last, and it's already out of date. I mean, right now, America is so vulnerable to modern methods of warfare, cyber warfare. Our economy is going to go splat really quickly. Next time there's a serious war, our electricity is going to go out. Our plants, our hazardous waste materials are going to get and chemical plants are going to get sabotaged. We are not prepared to deal with what a world war is going to be like in this day and age, and our aggressive military posture is just making the risks worse. If we want to defend America, we got to invest in resilience. We're not going to win wars by investing more and more in fancy weapons like the F-35 that hardly work. We're not going to defend ourselves that way. There's no way to defend ourselves just acting like we're always going to be 10 times stronger than everybody else. If we want to defend our democracy and have a future, we've got to invest in resilience, stop spending trillions of dollars on bases and wars all over the world that we don't need, because that's just causing more backlash and putting us more in danger.
Buddy, thank you. Well, first of all, it's great to see you again. You know, this COVID has kept us apart. A bunch of folks who've gotten to know each other in a variety of movements. But I guess I'll just sum it up before I go on to the next gentleman. Mutually assured destruction is alive and well here on planet Earth, and it hasn't gone away regardless of how many times we chant USA and how many hockey games we win. Fair enough?
That's good. Thank you.
All right. You, Mr. Smith.
I'd love to talk about the treaty.
Yeah, give us a quick analysis. I know you guys have been out here for a while.
Yeah, well, I'm William from Jamestown, and I don't know if you took a photo of this banner before I folded it up. We're so cold now, we gotta close up. But I'd like people to know that there's a new treaty, worldwide international treaty, that bans nuclear weapons and makes nuclear weapons illegal in 50 countries around the world. Unfortunately, the United States and the other countries that have nuclear weapons haven't participated in the treaty. They haven't ratified it yet. So with this banner, we're calling on the U.S. senators and our president to ratify the new UN treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. We have 2 senators here in Rhode Island. Senator Reed is very knowledgeable on military matters. I'm sure he understands that the nuclear war can never be won, and the only way to go forward in the future is to take the nuclear weapons apart. This can be part of Senator Reed's long-term legacy as a leader with military matters. And our other senator, Senator Whitehouse, has been a leader in combating climate change. A nuclear war would be a terrible, terrible climate disaster. And our Senator Whitehouse can also take the lead in taking apart nuclear weapons worldwide from a climate perspective. So we're going to keep on holding this banner up, asking our senators to ratify this treaty until it actually happens.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all for joining us. And we're going to have this in a warmer environment from the confines of our home sometime within the next week or so. It's a conversation we're trying to advance here in New England. And for folks who have been so committed to this effort for so long, it's important that your experience, your voice, and the context and your perspective that you operate under be reflected. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll be 2 weeks from now in warmer weather. We'll have the same banner over at Roger Williams College in downtown Providence.
Excellent. I hope to be there.
Hope to see you there.
Great. Ms. Fontes, thank you so much for keeping me in the loop on this, okay? And just keep me appraised of events, and I'll reach out to you sometime this week, and we'll figure out a way to get you on the air. Okay? Folks, we are the Coalition, as always, loud and very proud to be out here on a quiet, I think a reflective time of day. If you practice a Christian tradition, this, of course, is the holiest day of the year, Good Friday. We wish everyone, whatever religious tradition you celebrate or honor this weekend, to have a wonderful weekend. But also keep in mind that while we've been inoculated here largely, while as terrible as COVID has been, a lot of the challenges are being conquered here in the United States. Around the world, people are being there's a level of genocide that's taking place around the world that is comparable to some of the worst periods in our planet's history. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night. See you soon.